Later that evening, we were filming on the streets of Jeddah when the army arrived. 2 jeeps filled with soldiers surrounded us and demanded to know what we were doing. Like the religious police, these soldiers had the ability to confiscate our footage and even arrest us. After thoroughly checking our papers, they finally let us go. I later learned that members of the media routinely stopped on the streets. Working under these conditions was frustrating and frightening. How did Saudi journalists do it? I had been following the debate about women's participation in the upcoming elections in the Arab news. The articles were written by Abir Mishkas, a female journalist.
Why did you choose to be a journalist? Such a hard job. I would think that in a job where you have to interact with men quite a lot, that it would be hard to do.
Sometimes when you need something like officials, when you need to go to government places, that's a bit difficult. But in general, people are kind of, okay with you being a journalist. At least my
Abir has defied Saudi tradition by working in a male-dominated field and by not marrying.
I don't want to be treated as a woman. And since I came here, I remember telling them, okay, I'll be working like you. I'll be doing the same thing. There's no difference. I mean, that's it. We're doing the same job. We're getting the same things. There's no point in me being different. And I refuse to, even be treated differently.
Abir's office, like all offices in the kingdom, is segregated. Women use a separate entrance from men and only interact with their male colleagues by telephone and email. If the rules are violated, Saudi Arabia's religious police have the authority to shut down a business and arrest its workers. Recently, the rules have been relaxed, allowing Abir to work with her fellow male journalists. Still, she remained uncertain about women's participation in the elections.
The whole situation is not very clear, and I think it's going to be very difficult for the government to decide which way they want to go. Because again, they're always faced with some sort of a conservative tide in the society, and those people are not very happy with having women around.
So do you ever fear that you'd get a strong backlash?
Not really. Sometimes my friends would say, oh my God, how could you talk about this? But now I can write about things that I wouldn't dream about writing about, maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
Abir and others were taking the lead, creating awareness about women's issues, with the hope that women across the kingdom would follow in their footsteps. The role of women in Saudi society was changing. In a recent survey of 15,000 Saudis, more than 90% of the respondents favored granting more rights to women. Yet, it was still unclear whether women would be allowed to run for office or even vote in the upcoming elections. The issue sparked a heated debate, and at the center of it all was Hatoun Al-Fasi.
I'm very positive that once we as women show that we're organized, we know how to take up the municipal issues, then the state will yield and will accept, and will make more space for women.
Hatoun is a professor of history at the King Saud University in Riyadh. She has been advising some of the women planning to run for office.
The issue of women was not mentioned in Saudi Arabia before. It wasn't recognized as an issue. And of course, emancipation is a very bad word here. It means that you're adopting a Western image or a Western model, and you want to implement it in Saudi.
Hatoun's efforts to mobilize the women's vote so threatened conservative Saudi society that she had received death threats. But for Hatoun, the elections were an important milestone in Saudi history, and she was determined to include women.
Men and women are, for the first time, equal in one kind of an experience. Men haven't experienced elections before. So men and women are going through the same experience on the same level. Nobody knows better than the other.
Hatoun felt that the kingdom was ready for reform.
The state itself is the one who is asking for reform or is presenting reform. So we're just replying to that. We're just, you see, We're just being positive to what the state is presenting. It's like answering an invitation here, you see.
The election momentum was growing, and women like Khatun were making their voices heard.
Not everybody is as positive as I am, but because I believe in the ability of Saudi women, how determined they are, that we can really force ourselves to be recognized and acknowledged.
Every time I saw signs that reform was possible, I was reminded how far there was to go. The constant harassment worried me. How could fair elections be held in a country where the media face such restrictions? I visited Ifat College, Saudi Arabia's leading women's college. Although the lives of Saudi women are highly restricted, more than half of the country's graduates are women. I was curious to find out how these young women felt about their changing role in Saudi society.
Right now, there are very few fields that Saudi women can get into. You know, I mean, they can be doctors and professors and a few things, but they can't do a lot of things that other women in other Muslim countries can do. Are you the next generation? Are you going to be able to bring that change?
I think, yeah, because they want to reflect that the women of Saudi Arabia are not oppressed. They're not forced to wear the hijab or follow a certain path or follow the culture. They want to prove that, so now it's the opportunity.
And there is a slight change, I guess, because now females can work in international company. Like, for example, in the summer, me and my friends, we were working in an international company called Unilever, and it was a mixed environment.
You need a man's permission to do virtually everything in this country, study, work, travel, you know, check in a hotel, anything and everything. I mean, how do you feel about that? Do you not trust your judgment?
I'm married right now, and I don't mind these things. For example, today I had to take my husband's approval for this thing, and it was good because it's not a permission as much as it is he knowing about what you're doing. And
I realized that not all the students were ready for change, especially when it came to participating in the upcoming elections.
If we're not allowed to vote, then it's unfair. That's what I think.
I think even in the States, like in the Western world, women couldn't vote like a long time ago. It just needs time. Like women all over the world had a special case, not only in the Middle East. And every country or every part of the world took its time for that to change.
I just want to add that females in Saudi Arabia are greater in number than the males, so why can't they vote? They're more than half of the population.
Do you feel that you're a Saudi citizen? Do you feel that you have the same rights as a man does?
Not equally, but I would refer that to the culture. Because some people refuse to change, and they're not comfortable with their females working outside or going out or doing things without their permission or something. So that's, yeah. Unfortunately, it's in the culture, yeah.
You'll be amazed, like, if you made a study, like, to see who doesn't like these things, and you'll find a lot of women don't like to have these privileges. And they feel more protected, more safe under these things. Like
these young women were confident and well-educated. They represented the kingdom's future.